Made possible through support from PASCO, Personal Assistance Services of Colorado, the Arc of Aurora, and Developmental Pathways. A THINK+change training.
Hey, it's Jeff, and I'm here with
Petrie. We are advocates with the Arc of Aurora.
What are we going to talk about today?
Today we are offering up a THINK+change training on an aspect of the criminal justice system as it pertains to people with intellectual and developmental disabilities. Would you like to be more specific?
The big topic today is going to be probation versus parole. What the heck? Good grief. I mean, they both have to start with a P, which is confusing enough.
Yes.
I always have trouble distinguishing the two. So maybe, Petrie, you could break it down. What is probation? Let's start with that.
I am happy to crack the mystery. So probation versus parole. First, let's just start off by saying that both probation and parole are supervised by either a probation or a parole officer. Also a little confusing. And within your probation or parole, you are expected to adhere to a pretty strict bunch of rules and guidelines.
Okay, and included in that, would that be where you might have to pay restitution and possibly do some kind of therapies, maybe anger management?
Yep.
I don't know.
Yeah, and even maybe some community or volunteering time in the community to make restitution. So first, let's just start out with probation. It is an alternative to being incarcerated, and probation typically happens before you go to jail.
So like the PR, the way I'm going to remember this is pre.
Okay.
So going to jail?
Pre-going to jail.
Okay.
So probation is really kind of offered up as an opportunity for an individual to make amends for the crime they committed before they have to go to jail.
Oh, so that sounds like a pretty good option to jail. But I'm guessing it's going to be really important to establish a good relationship with the probation officer.
For sure. This probation officer is the one that's really going to try to help you stay on track. Not only in terms of making sure that those fines get paid, but making sure that you are showing up to your community service projects, making sure that you are going to your anger management classes or whatever other stipulations that you've been required within your parole.
And if transportation is a concern of yours, because you need to get to these meetings,
absolutely,
I would recommend you get together with your team. Mostly the residential, if you're in residential services, they're going to be ultimately responsible to getting you to these parole meetings. Are
Absolutely.
they long meetings? Would it take an hour?
It's usually probably no more than an hour. They're usually just kind of designed as check-in meetings.
Okay.
Just checking in with the probation officer and him checking in with you to make sure that you're staying on track.
Okay. And so people are often asking, what happens if I violate probation?
Yeah.
If you violate probation, the terms that you agree to with
That's
your
correct.
sentence, that's going to be really up to your probation officer. They're going to make a decision, and the probation could be revoked, and you could be resentenced.
That's correct. That's why it's so important to really stay on track, because if your probation is revoked, which means it's taken away, you risk going to jail for the rest of that time, or maybe even a longer sentence because you did break the rules of your violation.
And from what I understand too, though, correct me if I'm wrong, if you violate your probation, it could end up just turning into a longer probation sentence.
That's true.
That's
too.
another option.
Absolutely.
As well.
Yep. Yep. It could just extend what you already had.
So I guess we should talk about parole, because I know that's quite a bit different.
Parole is a lot different, and so I'm glad that we're really kind of shedding light on the difference between the two. So parole occurs once you've already been in jail. Parole offers you early release from your sentence. So there's different ways you can earn parole, but most importantly to know, it is something that occurs while you're already in jail. It takes you out of jail earlier than you would have otherwise been released. And you do have a parole officer that you have to report to. It's very similar to your probation officer. This parole officer will ensure that you are meeting all of the requirements of your parole.
Okay, and there's a lot of ways you can violate parole.
Yep.
I do know that. Some of them include testing positive for drugs, could be failing to show up to a meeting with your parole officer, or even violating a curfew.
Correct. It could also, if you are around people who have committed crimes before, if you're carrying weapons, even if you get stopped for speeding, something that simple could violate your parole.
And a much more serious violation of parole. A much more serious violation of parole is, I'm human, right?
It's all right.
But if the most serious violation of parole would have to be committing another crime.
That's absolutely correct.
And that could really get you arrested again.
It could not only get you arrested again, but you would have to serve most likely the term of your previous violation, and then you added on top of that would be this new sentence. So you could really get yourself into a world of trouble by violating parole.
So now that I have an understanding, I think it's fair to say follow the rules of parole or probation.
Absolutely.
Because if you break those rules, you're going to be in more trouble than you already are.
That's right.
That isn't worth it. So if you need to get your team involved to support you through the requirements of parole or the requirements of probation, get your team involved.
Yep.
There are people out there to support you, and you're going to need that support.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, really reach out to anyone that you can to help you stay on track, so that hopefully then down the road you can get this piece behind you and you can continue to move forward.
And also I want to add, a parole officer or probation officer, it is part of their job is communicating with you. So if you do have questions, ask them.
Absolutely.
They want to help you. They want you to be successful.
Absolutely.
So reach out to them, ask them questions. If you're not sure if you can go to Utah for the weekend, ask your officer before you just do it.
Right. Always better to know up front than risk breaking the rules.
Great. I think I understand the difference finally.
Good. I'm glad.
Cool.
All right. Well, that's our little ditty on parole and probation. Thank you for spending time with us today, and we will be back with more at a later date.
Great.
All right.
This is Jeff checking out.
Goodbye.